lectures there.
All right. For some reason, the lecture Zoom meeting opened in the lecture, and it should have not even been there for me to click on. But apparently I've been having the Zoom meeting in the lecture, and only one student went there and told me that that was the lecture Zoom and not the lab Zoom meeting. So thank you for that student who did that. Is that student here now?
I'm here.
Here. Okay. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sarah, for doing
you're
that.
welcome.
For some reason, I was putting your names together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shouldn't have even been set up that way, that I had the link to open the lecture Zoom. I probably didn't have my glasses on, and I just saw the button there, and I pressed it, and I'm not sure. But anyways, I've got the first part of the lab in the in the lecture Zoom. So we're going to have two lecture meetings for today, and I'm not going to repeat all of what I gave in the Zoom meeting I just gave for the lab, but I will start you off and get it set up so you know what we're talking about. Any question about any of that? My apologies. Like I said, Zoom shouldn't have even done that. It should have closed the lecture meeting when I ran the lecture meeting and already closed it. And let me go there now and just see what's going on here. See, it does have the lab here, but the lecture is now gone. And the lecture shouldn't have been there. So no idea why it was still there. All right, let's close that. So we're talking about the unknown project. That's what we're supposed to be doing today. And the unknown project is something you're going to be doing for the rest of the term, starting from today. You can find the instructions, which I'm trying to talk about here. And then the species that you need to consider is from this here, which I've got it downloaded here. So over here are all the species under consideration. Down to here. And these will be one of the species I'm going to send to you. And you're not actually going to get a species because this project's going to be done all online. I'm going to send you a number, and that number will represent one of these possible species of bacteria shown on this chart. And then you're going to be running different tests to identify the species.
Can you share your screen with us so we can see?
I thought I was showing my screen.
Sorry.
All right. So thank you again. Supposedly I was showing the screen. This is the list of the unknown species. There's about 30 of them. Actually 23, 22, something like that. And you're going to get a number which will represent one of these species. I am then going to decide the first 3 tests that you're going to run. And the reason why I'm deciding the first 3 tests instead of you're deciding the first 3 tests is because this project will entail 100 to 120 different comments or interactions between the students and me on average, meaning some students will require 5 tests to identify their unknown. Some students will require 6 tests, and that's the average. Some students will require fewer tests, like 4, and some students will require more tests, like 7, to identify their unknown. Okay, but the average is 5 to 6, and that means I will need 100 to 120 different contacts with my students for one project. And I decided that was just too much work for one project. And so I am deciding the first 3 tests, and you're going to start the gelatin test today because it takes a week to run. You're going to start the gram stain on Sunday, but you're not going to look at the cells. You're just going to make the slides on Sunday, and then you're going to look at the cells on Tuesday. And then you're going to start the PR lactose test on Monday. And then I can send all of the results to everybody on Tuesday. And you'll get the gram stain, the gelatin hydrolysis, and the PR lactose. And instead of sending 60 different contacts to my students, I'll be sending 1. And that will reduce the number of contacts by 60, or 59 exactly. And that will make this project doable. Okay. You'll note that you're starting the gram stain, or the gelatin hydrolysis test today, the gram stain on Sunday, and the PR lactose test on Monday, so that I can send you the results all on Tuesday to make the project follow dichotomous logic. In dichotomous logic, you normally run the gelatin hydrolysis test, wait for the results to come, and then you run the gram stain test, wait for the results to come in, and then you run the PR lactose test. Well, that's a little complicated, so I'm doing it this way. And it's still following dichotomous logic, and that way I only have to send off 1 message instead of 3, and 1's just better than 3. 3 is doable, but I'm not going to do it that way. Any question? Once you get your test, like the gram stain narrows it down to these possibilities, the gelatin hydrolysis will be negative, narrows it down to these possibilities, and then the PR lactose test, if it's AG, narrows it down to these 4. So that the only species now under consideration are these 4, and you have to pick a test to differentiate between these 4. And you could pick, like this test, methyl red, or Voges per skewer, or the Simmons citrate test. And if you pick the Simmons citrate test and the result comes back positive, you've narrowed it down to these 3. And that's what you do. And what you would do is request the test and put up your results and conclusions in your unknown notes page. I've already talked a lot about the unknown notes page in the previous Zoom session. So let me just say, you click here to get to your unknown notes page. You need to record your daily activities, the daily test you request here, and then the test results and the test conclusions here. And I've already talked at great length how to distinguish a result from a conclusion. You should also put your species under consideration. For example, let me show it here. After the PR lactose test, you only have these 4 species under consideration: C. ferendi, E. aerogenes, E. cloaceae, and E. coli. I'm abbreviating because I've already talked about this. So put that there in your unknown notes page. You should also put at the end of your page, the unknown notes page, your test request. I have a speed grader button here. You'll have an upload button for putting in your document. You can put in as many documents in the unknown notes page as you want. And then when the grader, I'll look at this, I'll scroll down to the bottom of the page, see the test request, and then send off the test request if it's time to send off the test request. And I'll only know from the incubation period. If you have like the catalase test, you can get that one right away, assuming you have the cells. You can get the catalase test results right away. Most of the tests require 2 days of incubation. So once you request the test, you will not get the results for at least 2 days. Some tests require 5 days, and the gelatin hydrolysis has a 7-day incubation period. Any question about that? You look at the test to determine the incubation period. Let me see if I can get that. So under week 5, lab, the unknown test, the catalase test will tell you the incubation period immediately. The biolisculin, I think that one runs for 2 days. Most of the tests run for 2 days. I've got too many pages open probably. So 48 to 72 hours for cocci, bacilli 24 to 48 hours. So this one we'll do for 2 days.
So would you just be sending us a picture of the results and then we determine where we're going from there?
Yes.
Or how do we, okay.
All right. So in the unknown notes page, I'll scroll down and we'll see your test request at the bottom of the page. And then I just move on to the different student. You can put as many documents up in your unknown notes page as you want. Some students like to be formal, in which case they just add to their unknown notes page. And this will be like day 1 and then day 2 here and then day 3 here. They just add to it and then they write formal and then they can just copy their unknown notes page and then put that in for a lot of their unknown report. Somebody have a question? All right.
So our day 1 would actually start on Tuesday, is that correct?
No, day 1 will start today. You'll get your results on Tuesday because you're requesting the test that I'm sending to you and I'm choosing which test you're getting. But the test day 1 starts today. I think I'm done with this one, but I won't close in case I come to it again. All right, so that's the unknown project, 75 points. You can read about the introduction and the rationale, the project format. I've changed it to make it more appropriate to the online thing. And for some reason, we don't have the most recent version. So I got to upload this page. Let me make a note of that. It might be because in the summer term, I used from a previous summer term, and so I don't have the most recent version. You should use the table for determining what species you have under consideration, because our table is not perfect. The table is designed to help you identify the species. I don't remember an example. Somebody found that the, I'm just going to say E. coli here was urease negative. And he said, well, E. coli is supposed to be urease positive, but the table says urease negative. And this is not the correct example, but somebody said that. And I said, well, the table is designed to help you identify the species. So there might be some changes in the table. So use the table to identify your unknown species. And I've already talked about that, but let's move on. You should use this project using dichotomous logic, and that means request one test at a time. That test will be yes or no answers, get the results, and then request the second test. If you request 2 or more tests at the same time, you're not using dichotomous logic. And if you do that, I will send the results to you, although I'll make you confirm it, but you'll get a penalty because you're not using dichotomous logic. You should record your daily lab notes in your unknown notes pages. And I did discuss what you need to do for your unknown notes pages. And the project is worth 75 points. It should be typewritten. It should use 12-point font. Should be single spaced. You should discuss each day the test you requested, and then later on, another day, the day you got the results, because usually that won't be the same day, and then the conclusions you make from that results. You may include drawings, photos, and tables. They're not required, but they can be helpful. You do not need to put in the step-by-step instructions for each test. All you need to do is say, I ran the gram stain. I know what the steps of the gram stain are. You don't have to tell me. You do need to have a table or a figure outlining the process you use to identify your unknown organism. I have a table here, and this is the species under consideration initially, and then the species under consideration after the catalase test, the species under consideration after PR mannitol test, the species in consideration after the PR glucose test, and then the species under consideration after the citrate test. So after the citrate test, you've now identified your unknown species as Micrococcus varians. So you've now identified the species. You may, this is optional, you may run one confirmation test after you've identified the species to confirm that your species is actually Micrococcus varians. So you may run one confirmation test at no penalty. If you run more than one confirmation test, then you will get a penalty. And that'll be shown in the grading rubric, which I'll show you in a little bit. Any questions about that? So you must have a table or a figure giving how you identified your species. You must also give a paragraph describing your species. And you must give a reference for where you got the information from your paragraph describing your species. Your paragraph may have in-text citations. It does not require an in-text citation, but you must have the full references for where you got the information for giving your paragraph information about your species. So in this case, we have Micrococcus varians. Write a paragraph describing Micrococcus varians. I think with Micrococcus varians, that has a new name, and in our table, we still call it Micrococcus varians, but I think it's actually Cucuria varians now, is its new name. In which case, to get the information, you'll probably have to look under Cucuria varians. Although I think if you do a search for Micrococcus varians, it'll send you to Cucuria varians. You can use whatever literature citation style you want for your citation, your thing. You must not plagiarize. This project will go through a plagiarism check. If ever you use more than 3 words you get from someplace else, you should put those words in quotes and say where you got it from. Okay? If ever you use a picture from the internet, you should state where you got the picture from and then give a reference below the picture. And those should be in your references, by the way. The grading, you will be mainly graded on the logic of the test you perform. You will be graded a little bit, like 10 points, on whether you identify the correct species. You'll be graded on the completeness of the report, the organization, the clarity, the neatness, the flow of the reading of your report. And I've got a grading rubric online. Let me open that up and then discuss it. So before you write up your report, you should take a look at the grading rubric. I'm just going to mention it here. You'll be graded on the utilization of resources. If you have excess media or you perform a test that doesn't help you, then you'd have 1 excess media and you'll get 8 instead of 10 points. If you have no excess media, then you get 10 points. Remember, you may do 1 confirmation test, and that will not count as an excess test, okay? But if you do 2, you'll have 1 excess. And then what's dichotomous logic used? If you have more than 1 test requested, you have 1 excess test. Instead of getting 10, you'll get 8. 2 extra tests, you get 6. If you use shotgun approach, you'll be down 8 points. Okay. Were all relevant tests used? If you do not successfully identify your unknown species, and there's more than 1 there's 1 test you need to identify the species, so you got it narrowed down to 2, and then let's say you run out of time, or maybe you didn't notice that there are 2 species under consideration and you thought there was only 1, and then I go take a look at it and there's 2 species under consideration. You need to do 1 more test. So 1 test is omitted, so you get 8 out of 10. If you have no tests omitted, you get 10 out of 10. Were the correct species included at each step? So at each step, you're supposed to list the species under consideration. If 1 species was incorrect and you, I don't know, had E. coli in there and it shouldn't have been there, then 1 species was incorrect, you're going to get 8 out of 10. If all species are correct, you're getting 10 out of 10. And if there's over 5 species incorrect, you're only getting 2 out of 10. Completeness of the report. Is anything missing? If nothing is missing, you're getting 10 out of 10. If there's information missing, like you forgot your paragraph at the end describing the topic, there's 1 thing missing, you get 8 out of 10. If you forgot the paragraph and your citation, there's 2 things missing, you're getting 6 out of 10. Okay. Effective, clear communication. If everything is excellent, you're getting 15 out of 15. If you have some errors, a few errors, but your logic is understood, you're getting 13 out of 15. Get the correct species identified, it's 10 out of 10. If you get a correct group, but the incorrect species, like you get E. coli and it's instead Citrobacter furendi, that would be within the same group, you get 7 out of 10. If it's outside the group, but the gram stain is correct, you're getting 5 out of 10. And you get the gram stain wrong, it's 0 out of 10. And that'll be a total of 75 points. Any question on the grading? All right, that I think is it. At the end of this project, it tells you how to go through a dichotomous example. You do not need to go through that and answer the questions unless you want to. Like I said, that's not required. It's just an example of a dichotomous key and how you use it. You can go through that if you want to, if you want practice on a dichotomous key. And this shows you how initially we separated the species. In the lab, we gave you a tube that had 2 bacteria in it, and you grow it on 3 plates TSA, sodium azide, which grew only gram positives, and McConkey's, which grew only gram negatives, and then TSA, which grew both. And then you would choose one. If you wanted the gram negative, you take a colony here and then streak it out on a plate to get isolated colonies. So the cells went through 2 colony isolation events, and then you'd set up your stock culture from that colony on the second streaked out plate. Like I said, this is all done for you. I'm going to send you a number that represents only 1 species. So you're going to get online a pure species. However, you can go through the motion of splitting, growing your cells into separate isolated colonies, taking from a isolated colony, streaking it out to get a second isolated colony, and then taking the cells from that second isolated colony to set up your pure culture. You can go through that, and actually you can write that up, that you did that in your lab report. Okay. That isn't required, but you can do that. We're going to pretend that you're doing that because we're going to pretend that you're working with a culture, and then you make the stock culture, and then you choose the test, and we're going to pretend that you're using those cells to run the test. In reality, you ask for the test for me. I will then incubate it for you, and after the incubation time, I will then send you the results, and I'll send you a picture of the results. You will then look at the results, record the results, and then make your interpretations of the results, and that will be your conclusions. And then you write all of that up in your unknown notes pages, and then write the species under consideration after that test. And if needed, write down your next test request at the bottom of your unknown notes pages. Any question about this project? All right, let me warn you that I did go through very quickly some of the things at the start, so you may need to look at the first lab recording, which will be actually recorded as a Zoom, although lecture, but maybe I'll try and change that. Lab 1 and Lab 2. I'll try and change that and post that up. Any questions about this project?
Yes, so when are you assigning the number to us?
Hopefully I'll get that emailed out tonight.
Okay, and then you said we're supposed to start the gelatin test tonight. So do we need to go into the notes page and like send you a request for that test today?
No,
or do we wait till
because
after we have the number?
no, because I know everyone's going to do the gelatin hydrolysis test, the gram stain, and the PR lactose test. So you do not need to put that in your unknown notes page here. You can simply put in your unknown notes page, when you get the results, you can say that on day 1, which is today, you started the gelatin hydrolysis test. Okay. And then that will be day 1. And then a week from today, I'll send you the results. You can put on, and here are the results for the gelatin hydrolysis test. meaning you don't need to put that in your unknown notes page now, because I know that everyone's going to have those 3 tests. You should put it in your unknown notes page, but you can wait until you get the results and then put it in. And I'm going to send out the number today, but you can wait until you get the results and put in the number, although you can put in the number now if you wish. That won't be a problem. Okay, any questions about any of that?
For
So
the
when-
gel,
What?
go ahead, Jaden.
Oh, see, my question was just for the species under consideration. So is that just supposed to be based off of what you are thinking it is going to be, and you just have to write that down? I send it to you.
No, you'll get the first 3 tests. So you record the results of those tests and conclusions, and then go to the chart and figure out what species are under consideration after that.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Another question?
Yes, so the hydrolysis test is today. And then the gram stain is what day did you say that you're doing that one for
I
us?
will send that out to you when I send out the number.
Okay, so all
and
3 of them
the-
will be in that?
Yeah, and
Okay.
the gram stain will be started on Sunday, and then the PR lactose test will be started on Monday. That's just to make it so it follows dichotomous logic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions? If not, I think we're done here. Jaden, I now see you got a question because I stopped sharing my
Oh.
screen. I didn't see that beforehand.
yeah, I was just asking Rachel, but yeah, is it the bigger table you're talking about, when you're doing the process eliminate, not this one that's like gram, catalase, PR, mannitol, PR, glucose, and citrate. It's the bigger one,
I
right?
showed you that one table, so let me show it to you again. Assuming I still have it here. Yeah, this table right here.
Okay, yeah, the big one.
Yeah.
Excellent. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. All right, I think we're done, so I'm gonna end the meeting here, unless there's other questions. All right, I'll see you on Thursday. I've got a lot to do. I've got to finish the quiz. I've got another lab to grade, and I've got to upload corrections to the instructions, and then the cell arrangement. So I've got a lot to do today.
I have a question. You said on the message, we can correct the lab worksheet until Saturday. Exactly what time? Is it Saturday, 11:59 p.m.?
The lab worksheet, yeah, you must
Yes, yes.
submit the correction by 11:59 p.m. this Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
It'll always be that for the lab and lecture worksheets.
Okay, thanks.
Okay?
Mhm.
All right.